Codoro stood at the edge of a cliff, observing the desolate landscape before him. He noted the incredible number of humans who had vanished there and the collapse of the town along with the Earth's surface. He questioned what had actually happened. Sharpening his senses, he scanned the environment, eventually picking up the faint cries of someone calling for help. Someone under attack by demons. Realizing the presence of demon kin and the ongoing slaughter of humans, he concluded that a powerful one must have passed through the area. Behind him, Meili was peeking out nervously, having followed him across a vast distance. Codoro, aware of her presence, wondered how she had managed to keep up despite running over 1,500 kilometers. Turning around, he invited her to stop sneaking around and simply come with him. Meili panicked, unsure of what to do now that she had been noticed. The creature on her body taunted her, suggesting she just be honest and admit she wanted to be friends. Meili shouted in distress, terrified that she might end up eating Codoro if she got too close. Codoro reassured her that she didn't need to worry, he was stronger than her, so she wouldn't be able to devour him. Meili stared at him in disbelief, taken aback by his confidence. As Codoro turned to walk away, he told her to join him if she wanted, stating that he had someone he needed to save. Elsewhere, two children were running. One of them, Emile, tripped and fell to the ground. The other child stopped and called out to him. Frustrated, Emile cursed under his breath. The other child urged him to get up and keep moving. Emile, confused, questioned where they would even go, pointing out that Hydrat was likely also in ruins. Gathering his resolve, Emile declared his intention to fight, convinced that there was nowhere left to run. He shouted in frustration about their powerlessness against the demon kin. Suddenly, a three-headed demon appeared before them. As it approached, each of its heads expressed rage and annoyance, complaining about being assigned to garbage disposal and lamenting how newcomers had risen through the ranks. The demon, Deporapopper, one of the 10 demons and ranked number 6, ranted about the power dynamics of the Demon Lord's contract seal and his own status as a demon godkin, though he admitted he was a failure. In a twisted mood, he decided he would have fun killing humans. Without warning, Deporapopper pointed a finger and blasted away the top half of Emile's sister's body. Emile cried out in horror. The demon laughed gleefully, praising the expression on Emile's face and declaring the joy of killing humans one by one. In a desperate attempt, Emile charged energy in his hands and launched a fire spell, but it had no effect. Deporapopper mocked the low-level attack and prepared to strike again. Emile gritted his teeth, helpless and filled with rage. Before the demon could act, flames began to engulf Deporapopper's body. A massive explosion followed, completely swallowing him in fire. Deporapopper screamed as he was consumed. Emile stared in disbelief. Codoro then stepped forward through the smoke and flames, questioning whether Deporapopper was really dying from such firepower. He said he still had something to ask. Deporapopper, confused and alarmed, demanded to know who Codoro was. Codoro stated plainly that, as one of the 10 demons, Deporapopper might know the whereabouts of Hyrie and Miria. Deporapopper questioned why Codoro would ask that, his tone uncertain. Codoro gave a warning. He told the demon not to direct killing intent at him. Deporapopper, caught off guard, demanded clarification. Codoro repeated his warning. If the demon so much as directed killing intent at him, he would kill him. Deporapopper glared at Codoro, then burst into laughter, intrigued and entertained. Declaring that it would be interesting to see who would kill who, he prepared to attack, charging a spell. Codoro's expression darkened as the confrontation escalated. Codoro was split in two by Deporapopper's attack and collapsed to the ground. Deporapopper burst into laughter, mocking Codoro's apparent defeat. But then, confusion spread across Deporapopper's face as Codoro's body began to fade. At that moment, Codoro reappeared atop Deporapopper's head, revealing that what had been struck was only an afterimage, a trick he had forced Deporapopper's eyes to see. Bewildered, Deporapopper struggled to comprehend the illusion. He had never heard of such magic before. The technique Codoro had used was a fundamental ninja genjutsu known as Crimson Sight, a skill that created afterimages to confuse and deceive opponents. Enraged, Deporapopper threatened to kill Codoro. He activated his magic, letting energy materialize at his fingertips, then fired an attack. Codoro dodged with ease. Another attack came, but Codoro evaded that one too. Deporapopper unleashed a relentless barrage, yet Codoro effortlessly avoided every strike. As he danced through the air above his enemy, Codoro reflected on how his body, now in its prime, could move freely without tiring. All the limitations he once felt as a baby were gone. Floating above Deporapopper, Codoro activated a ninjutsu called Phantom Fire. A towering pillar of flame erupted, engulfing the area and searing through Deporapopper's body. As the fire receded, Codoro walked away, dismissing the battle as a waste of time and reminding himself that he needed to move on quickly. But Deporapopper, even as his body withered away, spoke again. He shared something unexpected. It had been the 4 heroes who destroyed the city. The revelation caught Codoro's attention. Deporapopper went on, speaking of the Demon Lord's cunning, and how the former heroes were used to destroy humanity's final stronghold. He mentioned their connection to the Demon Lord's contract seal, claiming they couldn't be saved. Codoro processed the weight of what he'd heard. If Hyrie and Miria had truly become servants of the Demon Lord, then the answer was simple. He would kill the Demon Lord. As Deporapopper faded completely, he offered one last unsettling truth. The Demon Lord had been born from laws outside of this world, and the world itself was just a small part of something far greater. Codoro then turned and approached Emil. Emil, flustered, handed him the Dragon Slayer sword, explaining that Codoro had dropped it. Codoro was caught off guard, frustrated at not realizing it had fallen. Handling a sword without a scabbard was never easy. Codoro asked Emil if he felt anything when holding the sword. Emil hesitated, staring down at the weapon. He then confessed his desire to become stronger, his regret for not being able to protect his sister. Codoro looked at him for a moment, then smiled and offered to give the sword to him. Emil reacted in shock, asking if he was truly serious. Suddenly, the ground began to rumble. Codoro was startled, and Emil, recognizing the signs, warned that it was happening again. A massive meteor began to descend from the sky. Emil cried out as the meteor drew closer. Codoro, bewildered, questioned what it was. Emil explained that it resembled the same event that had obliterated the city of El Rado in an instant. This time, it was heading toward Hydrat. He revealed that the attack was known as Meteorag, the meteor spell, a grand magic that only the great sage could use. As the meteor streaked through the sky, a single name surfaced in Codoro's mind: Hyrie. In humanity's last stronghold, the royal capital, Hydrat, the city was engulfed in flames. Chaos reigned as goblins cackled like maniacs, reveling in the destruction they had unleashed. Amid the rubble and fire, the soldiers of Hydrat fought to maintain order. One of them shouted commands, urging his comrades to secure the gate and leave the injured for later, prioritizing entry into the city. In the midst of the panic, a soldier clung tightly to a child who cried out for their father, trapped beneath a pile of collapsed debris. Breaking free from the soldier's grasp, the child dashed toward the rubble, embracing their father just as goblins approached, their weapons raised in bloodthirsty delight. The child's father, helpless and pinned, gazed at the approaching threat with despair. He questioned if this was truly the end, wondering aloud whether the demon kin would be their ultimate destroyers. But then, something unexpected caught his eye, a blazing object descending rapidly from the sky. Confused and alarmed, he stared at the meteor hurtling toward the already ruined city. Far from the capital, Codoro sprinted toward Hydrat. His eyes locked onto the falling meteor. Realizing he wouldn't reach it in time at his current pace, he activated a high-level ninjutsu, lightning speed. By concentrating the bioelectricity within his body into his legs, He triggered a surge in speed, propelling himself forward with explosive force. Codoro shot toward Hydrat at blinding velocity, clearing the city walls in an instant and eliminating the goblins scattered through the streets as he passed. He came to a halt before the father and child, standing silently amidst the wreckage and fallen enemies. The father, still pinned beneath the debris, stared in disbelief. The goblins had been annihilated in a flash. Struggling to understand what had happened, he tried to focus on what mattered most: the meteor. He urged Codoro to warn everyone and escape, but Codoro didn't speak. He stepped toward them and placed his hand on the massive rock pinning the father down. The man, filled with disbelief, insisted it was impossible to lift. It would take more than 10 men. Yet Codoro casually hoisted it into the air with one hand, leaving both father and child in stunned silence. As he looked down at them, Codoro reflected on his purpose. He had come to save Hyrie, but without realizing it, he had begun to fight for the city as well. Hyrie had changed him, taught him more than he'd ever expected. Without hesitation, Codoro performed another high-level ninjutsu, lightning charge. Channeling bioelectricity into the massive rock, he launched it into the sky. It soared upward and collided with the descending meteor, creating a blinding explosion that lit up the city and obliterated the falling threat. As the light faded and silence returned, Codoro stood still. In that moment of calm, he thought to himself that she had shown him he was no longer alone. The father, still overwhelmed by what he had witnessed, whispered words of awe and hope. A new hero had finally appeared. Meanwhile, atop Hydrat's wall, a hooded figure emerged, raising a hand and preparing to cast another catastrophic spell, Meteorag, the meteor swarm. But before the incantation could finish, Codoro suddenly appeared once more, confronting the figure and calling out a single name with quiet finality: Hyrie. Hyrie looked at Codoro, tears welling up in her eyes as the two faced each other. Her voice trembled with emotion as she apologized. Codoro stared silently at her, listening as she confessed the overwhelming surge of hatred coursing through her. She admitted that her feelings were spiraling out of control, deep, violent hatred that consumed her. She hated humans, she said. She couldn't help it. The torment she had endured made her believe she had no choice but to exterminate them before they could hurt her again. The madness in her words revealed just how far she was unraveling. Codoro, realizing something was wrong, considered the possibility that the contract seal was affecting her, warping her emotions beyond her control. Without hesitation, he began walking toward her. Hyrie, gripped by fear and desperation, screamed for him to stay back. She told him that if he wanted to stop her, he would have to kill her. As she said this, she activated a powerful spell, Barakuroa, the Karmic Inferno Annihilation spell. A massive blast of energy erupted from her, tearing through part of the wall. When the dust settled, Codoro stood behind her, his clothes ragged and burned from the hit. Hyrie turned and unleashed another blast of energy, but Codoro continued walking through it, unfazed, heading straight for her. He approached her calmly, letting her know that he understood. He knew she wasn't serious about destroying everything. Hyrie paused as he spoke, his voice steady and sincere. He told her that she had taught him so much, and that it was thanks to her that he had come this far. Then he hugged her. Hyrie froze in place, overcome with emotion. He reassured her, promising to kill the demon lord and set her free. Her eyes filled with tears again. Suddenly, Arzlad appeared and drove his blade straight through Codoro and Hyrie's bodies as they embraced. Blood gushed from the wound, and Codoro spat up blood from the force of the strike. Arzlad, observing Codoro closely, remarked with a sense of realization that Codoro was not just an ordinary human. Hyrie, still locked in the embrace, was overcome with concern for Codoro. Suddenly, another figure appeared in the distance. It was Miria. She stepped forward, and as Codoro saw her approaching, his expression grew serious, realizing the gravity of the situation he was now in. Codoro activated a ninjutsu called Finger Sever, slashing at Arslan, but Arslan disappeared. Codoro realized he had been caught off guard, but it was not just that. He couldn't sense any killing intent. Now standing behind Codoro, Arslan observed that despite Codoro's wound, he was still able to move, noting that he was not just an ordinary human. Arslan then turned his attention to Hyrie, asking if that was the baby from back then. Hyrie responded by casting full stamina recovery spell, healing the wound on her stomach. Arslan, seemingly uninterested, stated that it did not matter, as he intended to exterminate all the humans there anyway. Miria then dashed towards Codoro and slashed at him, only to be shocked when Codoro disappeared. Codoro had escaped into the distance, far away from the wall. He reflected on how difficult the situation was becoming, noting once again that there was no killing intent. It felt as though he was fighting a doll. Closing his eyes, Codoro focused on controlling his breathing and stopping the bleeding. He then performed ninjutsu, regeneration, causing the wound in his stomach to completely heal. The technique, a fundamental ninjutsu, accelerated metabolism to regenerate injuries and illnesses. Arslan appeared behind Codoro once more, questioning what kind of magic he was using, describing the techniques as eerie. Codoro explained that it was not magic or some miracle, but the result of extreme training and abandoning one's identity, a mastery achieved only by those who did not go mad. Arslan disagreed, saying that Codoro had mastered ninjutsu because he believed in himself and had something to aim for, comparing it to magic. Memories of the ninja Codoro had faced to earn his name flashed through his mind. Considering Arslan's words, Codoro admitted that perhaps he was right, but stated that his only goal now was to save Hyrie, and if Arslan got in his way, he would kill him. Arslan reacted to Codoro's resolve, urging him to come at him, as he cast an attack power doubling spell, charging up to attack. Codoro activated a ninjutsu called Phantom Fire, engulfing his entire body in flames. Both of them dashed towards each other, exchanging blows as they soared through the air, locked in a stalemate. Arslan commented on ninjutsu, finding it mysterious. He noted that there was no magic power or chanting involved, but suggested that perhaps both magic and ninjutsu, as techniques of human potential, shared the same origin. Suddenly, Codoro's body was slashed by Miria, who declared that there was no way he could beat them and urged him to give up. Immediately after, a massive ball of energy shot at Codoro, slamming him into the ground. It came from Hyrie, who apologized to Codoro after she attacked. As the smoke cleared, Codoro reflected on the situation. All of them were coming at him without any killing intent. They spoke of killing him or hating him, but none of them actually intended to kill. Codoro wondered if they were resisting the contract seal. It felt as if all three of them were attacking him while secretly hoping he would kill them instead. Faced with this realization, Codoro struggled internally, wondering desperately what he should do. Arslan appeared behind Codoro, preparing to attack. He unleashed an attack called Demon Light Sword. Codoro immediately retaliated with his fire ninjutsu, and the two massive bursts of energy collided, ripping through the ground. Arslan was overwhelmed with happiness, feeling pure joy at finally facing a strong opponent. Deep inside, he acknowledged that he had always been waiting for someone who could kill him. A flashback to the past emerged, showing the heroes being paraded around after their victory over the Demon Lord. Some years later, Arslan was seen bumping into a man on the street, who angrily told him to watch where he was going and get out of the way. The gathered people looked at Arslan with disdain, commenting on how unpleasant and filthy he was. A child even asked their mother if he was a beggar. It became clear that, over time, the heroes had faded into the background. Internally, Arslan reflected that he had always been watching the world, believing that surely another threat would eventually appear. In the crowd, someone mentioned hearing about a monster on the Western continent. Arslan reaffirmed to himself that protecting the world was his duty, something he had always been taught. The scene shifted to Arslan kneeling, defeated before Demon King Jura. The contract seal was imprinted on his body, and Jura's words echoed through his mind, urging him to kill the humans and reminding him that he had only ever been used. Another flashback surfaced, this time of Arslad's childhood. The people of his village praised him, calling him amazing and encouraging him to become a hero, the pride of the village. They instilled in him the belief that the strong had a duty to protect the weak, repeating the message over and over. Arslad believed in those words, seeing himself as the strongest, the bravest, and feeling he had to become a hero. However, Jura's voice cut through those memories, insisting that it was all a lie and that Arslad had merely been used. Arslad's spirit had been invaded by the contract seal, driving him toward madness. Somewhere deep down, a thought had taken root, a thought that perhaps he should kill the humans who had used him. Those thoughts gnawed at him, filling him with a deep sense of being disqualified as a hero. Back in the present, Arslad, consumed by despair, desperately wished for Codoro to kill him. Hyrie also internally cried out for Codoro to kill her. Even Miria silently acknowledged that this boy might be able to kill her. As the group charged at Codoro, his thoughts turned inward. Without knowing the Demon Lord's location, he wondered if the only way to stop them was to kill them, questioning if killing was really the only way to save them. Resolving himself, Codoro performed a ninjutsu called Shaka, Fuma's 12 Forbidden Arts, Scorching Transformation. A huge explosion of fire erupted, blasting through the surroundings. This higher-level ninjutsu caused excessive sweating of sebum, resulting in a massive explosion from the mouth. It incinerated everything within several hundred meters of the user, but placed a great burden on the body. Standing amidst the fading flames, Codoro saw Hyrie and Miria laying on the floor. Suddenly, a projection of Demon Lord Jura appeared, calling them a useless bunch and ordering them to disappear. The contract seal began tightening around their necks. Seeing Hyrie in pain, Codoro screamed out for her. Hyrie, through her suffering, expressed her gratitude to Codoro for saving them. Codoro's mind raced, desperate to find some way to save them. He remembered what Arslad had said earlier about ninjutsu being a mysterious technique, different from magic but perhaps sharing the same origins. He then recalled the spell Hyrie had cast earlier on Elva to remove the Demon Lord's contract seal. Back in the present, Codoro began preparing to perform a new technique, freezing sacred stigmata. Magic, in ancient times during the war with the gods, had been the only power that the human-kin and demon-kin possessed to resist their oppressors. It materialized the chi within the body through spells, releasing supernatural energy into the world. As Codoro chanted, energy gathered all around him, building in intensity until it shot outward, rushing toward Hyrie and the others. Hyrie stared at the light enveloping them, her mind racing as she recognized its overwhelming force. She wondered if it was the ancient freezing sacred stigmata spell, struggling to believe that Codoro had been the one to use it. As the contract seal faded from her neck, she realized it was an even greater power than anything she had ever seen before, a magic beyond her understanding. After performing the technique, Codoro stood still, his body swaying from the amount of energy he had expended. Hyrie's wide eyes remained fixed on him, her neck now free of the contract seal. As she watched him begin to fall, she dashed forward and caught him in her arms, hugging him tightly in gratitude for saving her. Codoro, still gathering his strength, let out a soft laugh and remarked with a smile that Hyrie had finally returned to her senses. He explained that he had tried the technique without much thought, attempting to imitate the magic Hyrie had once used on a fairy. Hyrie, amazed, said that she had never seen such magic before. In her heart, she believed it was the unique power of Codoro's ninjutsu enhancing the strength of magic itself, creating a fusion between the two arts. Codoro, puzzled, repeated the words to himself, pondering the idea of ninjutsu and magic combining into one. Meanwhile, Miria, noticing the disappearance of the contract seal, jumped for joy, exclaiming that she no longer felt any anger toward humans. Excited, she praised Codoro's strength and declared that she would appoint him as the war chief of Hydrat. Codoro, with a mischievous grin, suddenly began to play with her ears again. Embarrassed, Miria flushed red internally, Overwhelmed by the unexpected touch, she slapped Codoro hard, calling him a damn pervert and scolding him for where he had been grabbing. In the background, Arslan watched the scene unfold as his body slowly began to fade away. Deep in thought, he reflected on Codoro, Hyrie, and Myria, placing his hopes in them. He believed that, with Codoro leading them, they might even surpass the demon lord, perhaps even the demon godkin. Though Arslan lamented that he had failed to fulfill his duty as a hero, he found comfort in believing that they might succeed where he had not. Hyrie then stepped forward toward Arslan's fading form. She kissed him gently on the forehead, praising him for his efforts and calling him a splendid hero, bidding him to rest well. As Arslan's consciousness slipped away, his mind wandered back to memories of the time he had spent with his fellow heroes. His final wish was for the world to attain eternal peace before his body vanished completely. Myria offered her farewell, promising to see Arslan again in the afterlife. Codoro, stepping forward with determination, looked to Hyrie and asked her to teach him all the magic she knew as the great sage.